Hey, Lisa, thanks so much for getting on the phone with me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. For anybody watching, I first reached out to Lisa to do this interview because I just really value her expertise in college outcomes and preparing for career readiness for college students. And I thought that the students and the families I've been working with would be really curious to hear that perspective on sort of the end goal of the 4 years of college when it comes to that future looking success and going ahead and forward in life. So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today. And could you tell people a bit about your own experience and background?
Sure thing. It's my pleasure, Jason. Thank you so much for having me today. So, my name is Lisa Noble. I am the Director of Employer Engagement and Entrepreneurship at Colby College. And for the past 20 years leading up to coming to Colby, I was a head of brand strategy firms, and I managed large teams of young people coming right out of college and helped them figure out what they wanted to do, because life isn't linear. And I thought it was a great time to be able to help them navigate their career early. And when my kids went off to college, I decided, ooh, this is a population I could really help. So I came to Colby
Mm.
College to really scale my efforts, help students, especially liberal arts students, figure out what it was they wanted to do and get their careers started precipitously.
Wonderful. Well, we will definitely cover all of that, I'm sure, but we'll take a kind of a step back for this first question. My first question to you is one that I bet a lot of viewers might be asking themselves, which is, do I really need to think about my career when I'm a 17-year-old, a teenager? And how could I frame that the right way? Is it all about being ambitious, or is there some other way to approach the idea of what I want to do with my life when I'm still in high school?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, Jason. The way I like to think about it is that life is long and we have lots of different chapters to our life. And so it's never too early to start paying attention to things that may be compelling for you, that may add up to some future career possibilities. So it's sort of being in a sort of discovery and noticing mode. It's not that you need to
Mm,
do lots to prepare actively, but
mm.
pay attention to the things that you're choosing to do, what's energizing you, what's deflating you, noticing fact patterns and through lines that may help inform down the line what you might want to do.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. So, do you think when a young person is approaching sort of considering different careers or different ways to spend their time as they're going into preparing for their college applications, what were some general tips that you would give to a student who's 16, 17, looking ahead? How could they organize their time to find something meaningful and rewarding to do when they look ahead, both to college applications and then beyond?
Hmm. So, if I understand your question correctly, are you asking about how to leverage your college application process, or also how to create some exciting opportunities that would make a compelling college application, would you say?
Thanks for clarifying. Yes, I was the second one. So it was
Okay.
how to sort of create some exciting opportunities. Or I know that we'll also discuss the idea of if you are only able to get opportunities that are not exactly aligned with what you think you want to do in the future, how can you talk about those? But I think the first point would be if you have some sort of guess or idea about this is what I would love to do, or I think I'm passionate about this. Are there some ways that you could test that? And could you give some examples of different ways that you think would be effective to do that?
Absolutely. So this is something I recommend to all first year students as well, but it really applies to high school. It's never too early to get started. You would be surprised how many people are willing to let you volunteer if you're thinking about stretching into a
Mm,
possibility. Um, Nonprofit organizations, small businesses all need more help than they can afford to hire. And
right.
there could be some experiences, projects that they don't have to necessarily supervise, but things that you can volunteer to take off their plates that would create some value.
Oh, interesting.
There are opportunities if you think you're interested in, working with animals and possibly veterinary medicine. Certainly,
Mm,
any vet would really welcome to have a veterinary assistant that doesn't require a lot of training, but perhaps help in the surgical suite or even engaging, you know, clients and their furry friends. There are ways to do that. Or my son, when he was in high school, there are like externships that sometimes high schools set up,
right.
and sometimes there are volunteer hours that you can rack up that help you achieve credit towards high school graduation. But
Mm,
volunteerism is a great way to build your portfolio of experiences and notice is this really what I want to do? Whether it's volunteering at a hospital, working for a small business, helping, even scooping ice cream at an ice cream shop. Um, the normal high school jobs that are available to you, lifeguarding, caddying, wait service, bar
Yeah.
backing, etc. All of those things have the ability to give you insights into different possibilities and also strengths that you can later talk about.
Mm.
And we can talk a little bit later about storytelling. How do you make the most of a summer where you scooped ice cream? What are those stories that
Sure.
you tell?
Sure. Yeah, because that is a challenge, I think, for a lot of high school students is, well, my experiences don't feel that special, right? So how am I going to bring out the special qualities or just the skills that I've built through this experience, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, but before we get there, one challenge I think a lot of teenagers have when they look toward creating these opportunities, and I love what you were saying about, go out there and try to volunteer and see how you can help, et cetera, is, making that first point of contact, sort of outreach. And I know I'm getting a bit off script here, but I would love to hear your perspective. What are some tips you would have if you have identified an organization, that veterinarian or the engineer, or whoever it is that you would love to say, hey, I really want to help you out. How can I help? What would be the right way to approach that person? And do you have any tips in regards to how a high schooler can kind of form that relationship?
Sure, absolutely. Well, sometimes it's easiest to start local, and
Mm.
hopefully you've been a member of your community and maybe have some access to, if you're thinking about engineering, working with the engineer for the town in which you live, or
Cool.
maybe
Yeah.
some urban planning or what have you. There are ways to kind of
Mm.
find those people. But what I would suggest is, and I recommend this for almost any outreach to any human, is to introduce yourself politely, say who it is, who you are, and
Mm.
make a very simple ask. Ask for 10 to 15 minutes of their time
Mhm.
to have a conversation with you about, and set an agenda of 2 or 3 things that you would like to learn. They will give you
Nice.
the time if they know that you've actually given some thought to what you're not just asking about a meander. You're not looking at a meandering conversation. Most people are busy
Mm.
and they want to know,
Yeah.
what do you hope to gain? What's the purpose of your call? And that it's going to be a short conversation. They will probably grant you much more time than you think you need. And you need to be a little bit prepared for that conversation too. Think about, what is your ask? Is
Mm.
it, just learning more about their organization, what needs they might have, and would they be amenable to having a high school student do a short-term project? Is there work that they would love to have lifted off of them? That this is a volunteer opportunity, or perhaps they may offer to pay you, which would be great. That's how I would frame it, and follow
Mm.
up, be respectful, offer them some times and dates that you can connect,
Nice.
that work for your schedule. That way they're not left guessing. You want to take as much work off of the recipient of your message, especially if you're asking for their time.
I love that philosophy. Take the work off of their plate, clarity and concision, but also trying to leave it maybe open-ended enough where they can say, yes, I do think you can help here, even if it's a little bit different from what you were originally aiming at, right? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think that's super valuable for young people. Thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome. And when you think about a summer, whether it's between your junior and senior year, or after your senior year en route to college, don't assume that you can't do multiple projects over the course of the summer, perhaps
Mm,
intermittently while you're waiting tables, or doing
right.
babysitting, or whatever your summer gig is, working for Postmates, delivering food, what have you. There's a way to enrich your summer with small projects, even on a volunteer basis, that will give you great stories to tell.
Cool. And we were talking about storytelling before, so I'd love to follow up with that now. We've mentioned things like ice cream scooping or, being a waiter or waitress, something like this over the summer. If a student has this kind of position, and maybe it's not what they see themselves doing forever, what sort of skills might they be building, or how could they integrate that into their story later on, and sort of have the self-awareness to say, oh yeah, this is valuable for a certain reason. What do you think would be your guidance for that student?
Well, I have two parts of that answer. One is, it's important to know what your strengths actually are and what strengths that you
Mm,
think will be valuable,
yeah.
and to be able to tell a story through that lens. And so there are some tools that help you figure out your strengths. A simple one is to ask all of your friends and your family members and your teachers, what are the 3 or 4 words that come to mind when they think about you? That's helpful to kind of get
Right.
360-degree feedback, but relatively affordably. There are some options. I happen to like Gallup Strengths, which is a
Mm,
test that you can take. I believe that cost is roughly $19, but it's well worth it. And it will give you 5 of your kind of superpowers. And that is the lens through
Cool.
which you can see the world and see yourself, which is really great. Gives you a great vocabulary for what's so awesome about you. So if you're scooping ice cream, for instance, in a summer, there could be a number of different stories that you might be able to tell about that. For instance, were you incredibly efficient at moving people through the line, and what would the consequence of that action be? The value to an employer might be that they're generating more revenue, more quickly per hour. You're getting more customers
Right.
through there. Or maybe you're so charming that you're able to supersize that cone and increase the size of the check. So you're, generating more revenue per customer, bigger share of stomach
Right.
and wallet, so maybe you're like a smooth talker. So the story might be that you're, a persuasive communicator, right? It could be
Yeah.
that your boss has deputized you to, run the store during the business hours, alone, and, the peak season, it's summertime
Right.
on the Cape or what have you, and you're able to multitask and keep everyone engaged, even entertain them while they're on that long line. They don't seem to mind because they know they've been acknowledged. You're especially good at keeping everyone engaged. So there are lots
Yeah.
of different ways. It could be a communication story, it could be an efficient story. You could be very focused on making sure every single scoop is exactly the same. So it's very fair and there's no waste, so it requires thinking
Interesting.
about what are those strengths that you want to support, and then how can we sort of view the actions that you're taking and the value you're creating to your customer, to your employer, to your colleagues, and help bring those strengths to life with specific stories. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. I think it's super helpful because it seems like such a simple example on the surface, the ice cream shop, right? But
Sure.
you've taken it and you've generated so many different ideas for different personality types and how they could make the most of that experience. And I love, what that message is, where it's you take the self-awareness in and then look for what you can do more and look for how you can contribute, and then probably be proactive about doing that, right?
That's exactly right. It's
Okay.
always helpful to start at an experience that you're undertaking and think about what stories do I want to be able to tell at the end of this.
Oh,
And that
nice.
will also kind of shape how you look at the opportunity and what you bring to the opportunity. So I always like to think about, resume building as what impact have I had? What is the value and meaning of the work that I'm doing? What
Yeah.
is the value creation? And I think about it sort of as a so what, what is the context in which I'm working? Am I working in a really busy, under pressure? Am I the only one? Have I been selected to do something? Giving people some context for why what you're doing is impressive and or valuable, and what piece of yourself are you bringing to the enterprise, whatever it might be. If you're lawn mowing, did you take initiative?
Right. Right.
Were you very precise? Did you give extra good service?
Mm.
Did you, add a little extra, some piece of yourself?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, it makes total sense. And I think that it's something that a lot of, young people struggle to do while they're actually in that kind of experience. So the more that they take the step back and, reflect on whatever they're doing that day and saying, what can I do next that's going to excite me, that's going to be meaningful? I think that's awesome. So
I have one other tip actually, which is
absolutely.
that I think that resume building or thinking about your future is kind of a team sport. You
Okay.
shouldn't go it alone. It's really nice to have a partner, a friend or so, a trusted colleague or parent or person in your life who can reflect yourself and your own words back to you and help you hear yourself. So working through your story with someone else is really revelatory, and being able to do that for a friend as well creates kind of good career karma, is what I would say. Sometimes if you say talk about your story and work through what it might mean with a partner, you hear yourself in new ways and bring out nuances that you might have not thought to on your own.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I was going to transition a bit to talking about, you've worked with so many students going through their college careers and then looking ahead to what they're going to do next after that. And of course, you've seen some rock stars, you've seen some students who maybe they're confused or they don't feel they have a strong direction. When it comes to the students that feel like they're doing really aligned work, it's aligned with their values, it's meaningful to them, they're going toward a future that they're really committed to. Are there any qualities that these students share or any qualities that you'd bring out? Of course, we're all individuals and we all have our own quirks, but any qualities that you think that a young person, could really look to cultivate if they wanted to have this sort of continuity through their college career and beyond?
I think there's a couple of different qualities. One is self-awareness, and also I would say an openness, a curiosity, a willingness to
Mm,
pursue. So being relatively willing to look under the hood at yourself and to notice
uh,
what and pay attention to what's lighting you up, what's deflating you, what you do and don't like. Some people are not as quite as clear because they have lots of talents and it's a little
mhm,
overwhelming. Others
mhm.
are like, oh, this is not me, and they feel more strongly about it. But noticing what you love and what you hate, what energizes and what drains you, and also
Yeah.
feeling I would say that the students who are more purposeful are willing to engage and have more experiences so they can quickly iterate. So it's kind of a growth
Oh,
mindset is how I would frame it. They're willing to put themselves out there, take a little bit of a risk. They also tend to be pretty good at time management. Many of them
mm,
are, students who have lots of leadership commitments, or they're athletes and they have a lot of demands on their time, whatever those may be. So it makes them use their time well, and
mhm.
so they can treat career exploration or self-exploration almost as a project, if you will, and have some discipline around that. So
Nice.
I hope that's
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
I think it's very helpful. I mean, I think going from the self-awareness, which is somewhat intangible to an extent, but then to that idea of time management and the fact that those actually have a relationship, that there's some connection there. I think that that's really nice because you have the practical side too. Would you agree with that?
I would also
Yeah.
add one more thing, which is they're not afraid to ask for help. So they're the students who
Oh,
go
nice.
to teachers for office hours, or come to career advisors to check in frequently. We call them frequent flyers for a reason, and they are the ones who are most successful because they get input and check and feedback on the things that they're thinking about. They get put in touch with alumni who are willing to offer their own perspectives. They are actively
Mm,
engaged and taking ownership and responsibility for their futures,
huh,
not just sort of doing the ostrich, I'll get to it when I'm a senior.
right.
They're excited to show up to events that are kind of about career education.
Hmm.
They ask for help.
Yeah.
That's really the
Yeah, I
bottom
like that.
line.
Do you think the frequent flyers, analogy extends a little bit further because they're slowly racking up points and accumulating like this career karma that you're talking about, and then they'll be
Um,
able to sort of cash that in later? Yeah.
Absolutely. Not only are they gaining insight into themselves, and they're also communicating to the world that they're very interested and engaged. So
Mm,
people who are interested and engaged are the folks that we busy people really want to help most.
right.
If you're taking meaningful action, if you have a desire, I'm going to help you, and
Yeah,
so if you
totally.
don't come in, I don't know what your needs are, and I can't, we don't have time to do lots of outreach. There, 2,100 students. So
Yeah,
let's just say that we don't do that. But again, we small staffs. So getting on people's radar, letting them know that you have needs and wants and curiosity, and that you're
right.
asking thoughtful questions. You're doing some work on your own, and also willing to admit when you don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, that dedication, is very compelling, and I think, like you said, the curiosity, the willingness to explore, and you get that feedback. That's awesome.